At first light, Mrs. Potts awoke with a start. She couldn't wait to tell the others the joyous news. She had the night before for fear the moment with the enchantress was one she had dreamt up. If something happened at dawn, she'd know for certain and share the excitement with the others. She needn't have worried. As she awoke, she could feel the change in the air. Her eyes fluttered open and she gasped. From her spot high atop the tea car, she saw herself surrounded by a bright gold light, much like the one the enchantress had transformed in. But this time, the light was emanating from her own body. She quickly jumped down on the ground, just as a prickly, warm sensation overtook her. She felt herself arise into the air and spin slowly around. The light grew stronger, forcing her eyes to flutter open and close as suddenly she recognized her own arms, then legs appeared before she was gently placed on the floor on her own 2 feet. Feet! She had feet and hands! She thrust them out in front of her, then wrapped her arms around her own body. Body! She wiggled her toes, her feet bare, feeling the cool floor beneath her, and she let out a sob. She could feel again. She rushed for a mirror, and ripped down one of the bed sheets that the beast had insisted be draped over every mirror in the castle. He hated to even see his reflection in a well-polished goblet. She was certain she'd aged during the enchantment. It wouldn't have surprised her to find her hair white, but instead her milky skin tone warmed against her pale blonde hair, which was pinned beneath its cap, as she'd worn it every day she had worked for the beast. Her blue eyes were watery as they stared back at her reflection. At the sight of her human form, Mrs. Potts started to weep. "Thank you," she whispered to the world around her, sensing the enchantress was somewhere nearby watching. "Thank you so much for this respite. All over the castle, she began to hear the sounds of others experiencing the same emotions, shouting, followed by cries of elation, then sobs, overcome by being transformed from enchanted tables, chairs, and cutlery to their human selves again. "I must explain," she thought. "I can't have them thinking the enchantment is broken for good." But before she could step away from the mirror, she heard a tiny voice. "Mama! Mama! Mama!" She whirled around to see a small tow-headed boy crashing into her waist. "Chip!" She cradled the small boy in her arms, breathing in the scent of his hair, kissing his face, squeezing his tiny body as he wrapped himself around her. She never wanted to let him go, but he pulled back and looked at her, his smile big, his missing front baby tooth giving it an adorable gap, and he gasped, "Mama, did you see? Did you? I have 2 feet and 2 hands, and I'm missing a tooth right here," he said, pointing to his mouth. She laughed, suspecting the missing tooth was the result of his chipping his teacup when he fell out of the cupboard a few months back. After that, she'd made sure he slept on the lowest shelf. "I love it, and I adore you, my sweet boy." "Hey, buddy," she said, hugging him again and never wanting to let go. "You know those magical adventure stories I always tell you? Today, Chip, you get to have your own." His dark eyes widened. "Really, Mama? You mean we can leave the castle? What will the beast say?" "He's asleep." They both turned their heads to see Cogsworth and Lumiere standing with Fifi and some of the others, all of them in uniform, all human again. It only occurred to Miss Potts, now that she could see their old shapes and sizes, how much each resembled their enchanted self. "Friends," she said, rushing forwards to hug each of them, while still holding firm to Chip's small hand. "It is so good to see you again." "And you too," Lumiere said, hugging her back and laughing jovially. The shift in the air was instant, joy permeating from every inch of the stone walls. Mrs. Potts could feel it. What has happened? Cogsworth stuttered, his elation causing him to trip over his words. I don't understand. One moment my clock is striking 6, and the next I am a man again. I heard Cogsworth's gasp, and voila! Lumiere spun around, the coat-tails on his cold, gold-threaded jacket picking up the light. I am a man once more! But how? When? His face fell. The prince is still a beast? He has not found love overnight with nary a visitor in sight, has he? He raised one thin, dark eyebrow. The staff all started to speak at once, confusion rippling around the room. All the while, Chip was tugging on her apron. Can we go outside, Mama? Please? Please? Yes, my love, she said. We will spend all day outside. But first, I must explain something. I will tell you all what happened. Cogsworth started to interrupt as he pulled at his mustache nervously. Mrs. Potts shushed him as politely as she could. She didn't want to waste a minute of this gift. Last night, we had a visit from the enchantress. The staff listened with rapt attention as Mrs. Potts explained the offer that was given and the rules of this new enchantment, so to speak. For once, Cogsworth didn't interrupt. No one did, though Fifi did burst into tears when she heard the spell would only last till nightfall. Mon chéri, Lumiere consoled her. You heard Mrs. Potts. Today is a glimpse into what can be and what we once were, so we are stronger together to help the beast find his way, so that we can all be free. Understand? She nodded, and Lumiere looked at Mrs. Potts again. Thank you, my friend, for including us today. Mrs. Potts felt like she was going to get weepy again, and she wouldn't have it. There was just too much to do. She wiped her teary eyes with the back of her hand. Now, let's all save those tears for another day. Right now, we need to saddle up the horses, break out the wagons. We have several. If you want to go to the village like I plan to do with Chip, then you can ride with us. But if you choose to do something else, make your plans quickly and let's be off. Several servants nodded and raced off to the castle doors to get to the stables at once. And remember, you must be back by nightfall. Cogsworth rushed forwards and kissed Mrs. Potts' cheek. Thank you, my dear woman. I'm hitching a ride with you. It's been ages since I've been to a market, and I can already taste the loaf of bread I'm going to devour, and the cheese. He got more excited as he raced off, presumably to collect some coins to make purchases. Mrs. Potts planned to do the same. Whatever Chip wanted today, he would have. With no fear of the beast waking, servants ran about, shouting and calling to one another as they laid out their plans. Lumiere and Fifi were having a picnic in the meadow nearby. She overheard a few of the kitchen staff planning to take a horseback ride through the countryside. Someone was going swimming in a nearby lake. Everyone had a different idea in mind, though a few did join Mrs. Potts, Cogsworth, and Chip for the ride to the village. Chip was excited to see the woods they never ventured into and sit up front with the footman. The carriage bumped along, with everyone talking a mile a minute of things they wanted to see and do. One wanted to find the bookshop in town and see if there were any new books. Another wanted to go to the tavern and talk to strangers all day long. One of the women who worked with Fifi was hoping to try on clothes for hours. And what do you plan to do, Mrs. Potts? Cogsworth asked. She smiled. Whatever my heart desires. We will see where the day takes us, Chip and I. Splendid, he said, nodding as he patted down his hair, which he had oiled and parted straight down the middle. Just splendid. Now remember, Mrs. Potts instructed, using the same stern voice she used with the beast when it was time to file his claws. We will meet in the center of the village by the fountain at 4:30. No later. That gives us more than enough time to return to the castle before... There was no need to finish that sentence. They all knew what came next. A pit formed in her stomach at the thought, but she wished it away. instead making idle small talk till she heard the wagon start to slow and heard Chip's excited voice. "We're here! Mama! The village! We're here! Let's go!" They all laughed. "Wait for me," she started to say as she stepped out of the wagon and saw the boy jump from the carriage bench. Mrs. Potts wanted to scold him for making such a high jump, but today there were no rules. He deserved and needed to be a boy again. "I'm coming, Chip." She turned back to see the others dispersing. Cogsworth was already walking swiftly past her into the center of town. "Save some bread for me, friend," she teased, then hurried after her precious boy, who was running down the path to the center of the village. As it came into sight, she felt her heart skip a beat. There it was, the quiet village with its cobblestone streets, beautiful peaked buildings nestled together, stone archways connecting paths, and flowers draping from every flower box. People were bustling in and out of shops and setting up at the market in the town square as ducks milled about, pecking at any morsel that dare fall to the street. A woman was hanging laundry from a line outside her home while she shouted across to another woman doing the same. All the while, children of all ages ran in and around the crowds, laughing and chasing one another. Chip stopped in his tracks and stared. He hadn't seen another child in such a long time. Mrs. Potts pursed her lips to keep from crying. She refused to cry again today. Chip looked back at her, his eyes big and round like the saucer his teacup was usually perched on. "Do you want to run and play or get something to eat first? We could go to the boulangerie or the pastry or both. Bread first, sweets first, at the same time," Chip said enthusiastically and rushed back to grab hold of the front of her skirt. She laughed and picked him up in her arms. "Let's do both, shall we?" "Yes, yes, yes," he said, his little laugh filling her heart with joy. She stepped into the first shop they saw and bought the largest, crispiest loaf they could find, then went straight to get sweets, filling up their pockets with nougats and eclairs. Chip shoved his eclair in his mouth before they were even out the door, the cream oozing down the sides of his face. "This tastes so good," he mumbled, halfway done with the pastry already. Mrs. Potts did the same, and there was nothing like the mix of chocolate and cream with the buttery pastry taste. She'd almost forgotten. Enchanted objects didn't need to eat, but that didn't mean they didn't long for the delicacies they once had. A drip of chocolate oozed down Mrs. Potts's face, and she caught it with her finger, licking it to savor the chocolate. "We might have to go back for more of these." "Yes, please," Chip said, mindful of his manners. A woman and her child looked at her, and Chip, inhaling the eclairs, and gasped. It was barely 8 in the morning, after all. Early for sweets, perhaps, unless you were someone who had just one day to enjoy them. Mrs. Potts smiled brightly, still tasting the sugar on her lips. "It's his birthday. Nothing like a treat to start the day." The woman pulled her child along. "Is it?" Chip asked. "My birthday?" "No," Mrs. Potts admitted, "but it feels like a birthday, doesn't it? Today is all about you. What do you want to do next?" He gave her a wry smile. "Eat the bread." She was not ashamed when they ate the whole loaf, leaving the hard edge to feed to the ducks at the nearby pond. Chip laughed with delight as the ducks pecked the ground for the crumbs. They raced each other around the pond, then had a lively round of hide-and-seek, Chip squealing with happiness when she found him time and time again. And they delighted in the simple pleasure of walking, taking deep breaths and looking up at the blue sky, then down at the grass beneath their feet. Mrs. Potts pointed out flowers and trees, anything she could think of that her boy hadn't seen before or couldn't remember. She made him notice the wind on his cheeks, and when a quick shower made many run for cover, The two stood in the field and stared up, feeling the rain on their faces. It was glorious, and when they finally grew tired, they went back to the shops and, like Cogsworth, ate some cheese, indulging in both the soft and hard ones. Some shop owners tried to sell her clothes and hats, but she had no interest in even looking. The same went for housewares, of which she saw too many already. Instead, they wandered into the bookshop and looked at books, Chip wanting her to read aloud every new one he spotted. "I can't read them all, Chip," she said. "There isn't enough time." "Come back tomorrow," the man working in the bookshop said with a smile. At that she stiffened, and Chip reached for her hand. "Yes, thank you," she said awkwardly, and glanced over at a clock. There wasn't much time left before they had to go. "Come now, Chip." They no sooner stepped outside than a group of kids rushed by the doorway, chasing one another. He looked after them with interest, and it pulled at her heartstrings. "Do you want to go with them?" she asked gently. The smile on his face told her everything. "Can I?" "Yes, but don't go too far," she said. "Stay where I can see you. I'll be wandering around the market." "Thank you, Mama," he said, and tore off. She watched, waiting, worrying. Would they accept this newcomer? But children hadn't changed since she had become a teapot. They were exactly the same, welcoming their new racer with open arms. Mrs. Potts sat down by the fountain, watching them and laughing as they played childhood games she'd long since forgotten. When one boy pretended to be a duck and Chip copied him, Mrs. Potts laughed and heard someone laugh beside her. A woman sat there, her hair tied in a bonnet, her face older, her blue eyes still so young. "Hello, friend." "Hello," Mrs. Potts said. "Is one of those young things yours?" the woman asked. "Yes," Mrs. Potts said, pointing to Chip in his pale yellow shirt and blue shorts, racing around a wagon. "That one right there. Do you have any children?" she asked, trying to make conversation. "Ah, I did. A spry young man. He's grown now, but when he was younger, he was quite the beast." She patted Mrs. Potts's hand. "Oh, I can tell already your child is nothing like mine once was. The boy in my life was selfish, unkind. I wasn't sure he'd ever change his ways." Mrs. Potts felt a prickling sensation at the back of her neck. "I know a young man much like yours," she said softly. "I keep hoping he will better himself, not just for his own sake, but for those who live and breathe around him. But sometimes," she admitted, "I lose hope." "Don't." The woman squeezed Mrs. Potts's hand. "He will come around in the end. You'll see. If you guide him and continue to teach him who he could be, he will change. You have to believe." In the distance, Mrs. Potts saw Cogsworth wander by, patting his stomach while he continued to consume a large loaf of bread. "I'm trying," Mrs. Potts said, a lump forming in her throat at her frustration. "But he has to have the chance to change. And where I live, no one visits. And he can't leave, so to speak. How will he ever have the opportunity to grow and learn if he doesn't have moments like these children do, interacting with one another, learning from one another, like my young one is?" "Oh, you bring up an interesting point," the woman admitted, her voice hoarse. "Being locked away does not do him much good, it seems." "No, it does not," Mrs. Potts said. "He is losing himself to his curse, the curse of loneliness and despair. I know he wants to change. I can feel it. But to learn to love, he must meet another." "So you're saying he needs to be given the chance to give love and receive it?" the woman asked. "Yes," Mrs. Potts agreed. "That is what I wish for this young man. An opportunity, like I've had visiting this village today. How can one learn if they don't make connections outside their four walls? I see that now myself. I spent a lot of time in the dark, but I try to stay positive. I felt myself draining, but today's day off, It bolstered my spirits. And I know I have the strength now for another day. I fear my masked young man is losing hope. I just want him to have the opportunity to prove himself, like I've had today, so he knows what to fight for. You are wise. I could see that, the other woman said, and I think your wish for him will be granted. Have faith, Mrs. Potts. Mrs. Potts whipped around at her name. How did you know my... But the woman she'd been talking to had vanished as if into thin air. Had that woman been the enchantress? Had she just inadvertently made a wish for her prince? Would it be granted? Would love be sent his way as a challenge and a test? A stirring filled her soul, and a smile curved her lips before she could stop it. Yes, she could feel it. She had hoped again, and she would bottle it and hold it close to her till the time came when she could use it to help her prince. She would see to it the others believed too. Mama! Mama! Said Chip, racing towards her at the fountain and crashing into her legs once more. We played so many games. The children are so nice here. Can we come back again? Can we? Just then the clock in the village square tolled. It was 4. Mrs. Potts rose and started to look around for the others. Their time was coming to a close. They needed to return to the wagon and then to the castle. She looked down at Chip and smiled. I think we will be back, Chip. And this time she believed it in her soul. Yay! He cheered. The ride back to the castle was surprisingly chipper. Everyone spoke of their adventures, the food they ate, the people they interacted with. Their cheeks were rosy, their eyes bright, and the same could be said of Lumiere, Fifi, and the many others who greeted them at the castle gates. Mrs. Potts counted heads, and from what she could tell, everyone had returned. Quickly, she made everyone tea. It would help calm them, for sure, as they waited for what was to come. But she wasn't worried. Everyone looked like they had been filled with the strength they all needed to survive whatever lay ahead. As the sun started to dip below the mountains in the distance, it was time to go back to where they had been before the enchantment. Lumiere and Cogsworth hugged her. We will see each other again, just like this, Lumiere said. I can feel it in my bones. It's nice to have bones, isn't it? Cogsworth tutted, and they all laughed. It is, Mrs. Potts agreed, marveling at her hands another time. And we will return to ourselves again, I am certain. Lumiere kissed her hand. Mon chéri, if you believe, I believe too. Till then, Mrs. Potts said, and watched as they walked off to the area of the castle where they normally sat in their enchanted forms. Mrs. Potts did the same, taking Chip to the kitchen and reading to him till he fell asleep. The castle was darker now, Chip's voices quieting, and after so much running, Chip's eyes started to close. Today was fun, Mama, he said. It was, my boy. And I promise more days like this are coming, she told him. When he was finally asleep, she tiptoed off to check on the beast. She could hear him snoring as she reached the west wing and wondered when he'd begin to stir. For a moment, she watched him and remembered the boy he used to be, just like she could always see the child in Chip, even as a teacup. This beast was one she knew could change and be a better human. Near his bed, she spotted the hand mirror the enchantress had given him. It allowed him to see anything his heart desired. Could the same be said for her own heart? Curious, she picked the mirror up and looked into the glass. Show me the future, she whispered. She waited a second, then saw the mirror's glass begin to swirl, looking like a drop of water on a lake. Suddenly, an image came into view. One of a young woman with dark hair, bright brown eyes, and a traveling cloak, knocking on the castle doors. She's the one, Mrs. Potts thought with a smile, and she's coming here. Satisfied, she placed the mirror back on the beast's bedside table and sighed with contentment. He had no idea his whole life was about to change again, but she did, and she couldn't wait. And that was the end of Human Again. Thank you so much for joining with me on another Read Aloud. I can't wait to see you guys in the next one. Bye. See you real soon.